So now we're going to make our blueberry basil mousse. So you need to get a couple of things ready before we start. You need to get your flexi pan ready, and then you need to get your round cutter and find the cutter that fits just inside the flexi mold. So in this case, it's the 68 mil. Okay? Then you're going to cut out 3 circles out of your brown butter, lemon, poppy seed financier. And then when you look at it, you'll realize that the cake itself is actually quite thick. So I'm going to split it in 2 just using a knife. So I'm just going to take my knife and sort of roll it and divide this in half, just because it's too much cake for one portion. There we go. So we have our portions of cake. Get rid of the extra. Okay, next we need to warm up our blueberry puree, and we want to warm that up until about 50 degrees. And once it's at 50 degrees, we want to add in our bloomed gelatin. So I have my gelatin sitting here in some nice cold water, and it's fully hydrated. So I just want to squeeze out any extra water that I can. And then I'm going to add that straight to the puree so that it can dissolve. If your puree is not hot enough, your gelatin won't dissolve. We also need to lightly whip some cream. So we want to whip our cream to soft peak. So not crazy. It's not a huge amount. I just did it by hand. So my cream is ready to go. And I've also melted my chocolate and let it cool to 35 degrees. Now, obviously, it's a tiny, tiny amount of chocolate, so I just did it in the microwave. But you could do this over a bain-marie if you were doing a large amount. So I just want to stir my gelatin in, make sure it's dissolved. And then I want to take the temperature of my puree and make sure I'm around 50 degrees. Excellent. 49. We'll call it good enough. Now what I want to do is I want to combine the puree with the white chocolate, but I don't want to just dump it all in. So I'm going to add a little bit. And I'm going to combine those 2 first. And then I'll add the rest. But I want to make sure that it comes together really nicely. I don't want any chunks of white chocolate left behind. So I want to make sure it's well combined before I add more. There we go. I'm going to add the rest. Then I'm going to put it into another bowl just to make it easier for me to fold in the cream. You want to make sure that this mixture isn't too hot, so don't start mixing until your puree is at 50 degrees. If you start doing it too soon, the fat in your cream will melt and you won't get a nice mousse. So make sure everything is nice and ready to go. And now we're going to start adding the cream. So I'm going to add the cream in my usual manner. I'm going to add 1/3 and fold that through just to get it started. If you've over whipped your cream and you're having trouble folding it in, you can use a whisk, but still use a folding motion, okay? Don't whip it in, still fold, but use the whisk, and that'll help break up any larger bits of cream if you had any. So once it's about 75% incorporated and my puree mixture is lightened, just like this, I'm going to add the rest of my cream. And you want to make sure everything is ready to go, because once you've added the cream, the gelatin's going to start to gel, and you won't have as much time to go back and cut cake or get anything ready to go. So make sure everything's completely ready before you start doing this part. So we're going to fold in our cream. Color is just outstanding. So the setting agent in this mousse is a little bit of the gelatin and a little bit of the white chocolate. They're both going to help set it, but you can't set the mousse without one or the other. This actually in combination is required to set it. So one good fold, just to make sure I've got everything off the bottom there. Great. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mold and I just want to add about a third. And I don't know actually how many I'm going to get, so I'm going to start with 3. And then I'll go back and fill number 4 or 5 if I have enough mousse after that. So once I've got that filled in, I just want to give it a light tap on the counter to flatten it out. And then out of the freezer, I've gone to get the cremeux that we made, the basil cremeux. So I want to pop them out of the container, and you want to make sure they're nice and frozen when you do this. You just want to set it just in the middle a little bit. Don't tuck it down too far. We're going to top it with some more mousse. And flat side to the top. But don't push it all the way to the bottom. You want this sort of centered in the middle of your mousse. I think I'm going to use my little spoon here instead of my spatula. A piping bag would be helpful too if you were making, 20 or 30. So I'm just going to spoon a little more mousse on. I don't want to fill it all the way to the top, but I do want it relatively close to the top. So once it's almost at the top, I've got about 1/4 inch of a gap. I want to take my cake, and your cake will have a sticky side and a drier side. You want to put the sticky side in, and you want to line it up just inside and give a gentle push until you see the mousse come up the sides of the dome. Tuck it in. If it's popped out the side of the dome, just give it a quick wipe. You don't want to have a bulge on the side. Now I'm going to do 2 more. I think I have enough for, maybe 3. When you push the cake on, you do want to push to make sure that the mousse is filling solidly the sides. Check your edges one more time. Make sure everything's nice and smooth. You don't have any bulging mousse anywhere. Okay, we're going to pop those in the freezer. And after a couple of hours, we'll take them out and we'll give them a glaze.